Welcome to On the Edge with April Mahoney Brains. Here, this is the spot where the conversation is pointed, the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. Welcome home, Brains. There's only one requirement to hang out on the edge, is that you open your big brain and close your small mind. Did you bring your thinking caps? It's time to put them on, because the conversation starts now.
Marriage comes from.
Wow. Welcome to On the Edge with April Mahoney Brains. We are at the spot, your favorite place, the podcast, where the conversation is pointed, the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. And today we have Dianne Simboro. We're going to talk to her about the unification of marriage and the sanctity of marriage. Also, having interracial, biracial children. This is going to be pretty fascinating. She was she grew up as a member of the Unification Church, the Moonies. Now, I had never thought that. I had never heard of that before. And it's different. It says the Family Federation for World Peace and Unification, widely known as the Unification Church, is a new religious movement derived of Christianity, whose members are called unificationalists or informally Moonies. She told me that it was a cult. And I'm like, wow, what does that mean in modern times? And how did you break free? We're going to welcome you to the show. How you doing, Dianne?
Really good. Thank you. Thanks for having me today. That's great.
You're as sweet as you can be. We are going to talk about spirituality because, as you said, I'd have a lot of Australians that follow my show, tons. And I don't hear a lot about, the Torah, the Bible, the Quran, or being Buddhist. I hear a lot about spirituality. How did you find yourself in this space in Australia with the Moonies?
Yeah, I didn't join in Australia. I was traveling around the world, so I did not join in Australia. And in fact, if I'd have met them here, I would have fobbed them off, quite honestly.
What'd you say? You would have fogged them off?
I would have fobbed them off. F-O-B, yeah, fobbed them off.
Oh, okay.
I
love the different idioms and terminologies in Australia, so I'll have to write that one down. Fob, F-O-B-B off. Okay.
Yeah. I wasn't even slightly religious. In fact, at the age of 6, I went on strike and refused to go to church with my parents, because I asked the minister a pointed question about Jesus, and he couldn't answer the question. I thought, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm not showing up anymore. You're supposed to be the expert. Sorry, you don't know what you're talking about. Why should I come? Yeah, so my parents used to go to the church by themselves. And so I wasn't, so we talk about spirituality in Australia. We're not super religious people as such. People don't openly proclaim themselves to be Christians so much, or whatever religion they are. But we do converse in spirituality. We're comfortable with that, and it's the same thing. It's just got a different title and a different feel to it. Yeah, so... Yeah, but
I don't know. Now, because I'm very spiritual, but I do believe in a religious text and a religious doctrine. I look at religion as a Uber. It's driving me to my destination. But once I get to the spiritual realm, I've arrived.
Yeah.
But it's what you take on that journey with you. What are the disciplines? What is the learning? And also there's a lot of fear. People will whip out their religious texts and they will whip you to a pulp. Is that what you found happened as a part of the Moonies?
Yeah, people persecuted us quite strongly because we were a new religion. I didn't grow up in the religion. I was in it for 41 years, but I didn't grow up in it. My children did grow up in it, so they were like second generation in the church, or we called it a church. I think now it's a cult, because I've had a lot of experience since then, since leaving. It's only 2 years ago now. But so
you've just been removed from the religion for 2 years?
Yeah, not very long. not very long. I spent most of my life committed to the church, so I believed it was a church, because I didn't have a lot of experiences with religions. So I was somewhat naive, like I left my church at the age of 6. So anybody who tried to witness to me after that, I used to shut them down. I wasn't interested in religious people. I thought they were a little bit weird, and I thought they were very judgmental and not very kind, so I didn't meet wonderful religious people. But the ones that I did meet were truly wonderful, and I would approach them and ask them questions because they didn't bombard me, so I like open and honest conversations that I can instigate. I don't want someone breathing down my neck and trying to force me into a way of belief, a system.
Again, I tell people all the time, you got to have your own personal relationship with God, Spirit, Gus, God, Universe, Spirit. Your own personal relationship. It cannot be delivered through the interceder of your pastor or your cult leader, because once you get that feeling, like me, once I got the Holy Ghost, I don't know if you ever seen anybody get the Holy Ghost and start shouting and speaking in tongues. Honey, it's undeniable. I look right past the pastor. Now, I see also that you still have a fondness for the divine. I see that there's a beautiful angel on your shelf.
Yes, that was given to me by a lawyer that I worked with. I work in family violence. I support women who are going through family violence, but I also went through it myself. And that was faith-based marriage. That was a marriage that was organized by our church. So my partner was chosen for me. So I actually relate.
Wait. Let's dial back, because you married an African, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Boy. So an Africana or an African, a black African or a white Africana?
No, black African. Yeah, he was from West Africa. Boy. Not even South Africa, West Africa. Yeah.
So West Africa. Okay.
Yeah.
And were you one of many wives, or were you, that's
no. The Moonies don't have multiple wives. They have one, like the one marriage kind of thing. Yeah. And you're supposed to remain loyal to that even beyond your life itself. Yeah. Wow. So no, there was only one, but he came from a Muslim family. So I came from, my father was Jewish, my mother was Christian, and he was from Muslim background. And in my about 3 or 4 generations ago, I had a Chinese Buddhist grandmother somewhere as well. So
my goodness, so you had the alphabet soup of religion. Bless your heart. So all right, so now let's kind of go through this kind of systematically. Brain, this is not to judge you. This is Dianne's experience. Okay, this is my personal experience. This is a conversation. Color in the white spaces where you may. Don't get your feelings hurt, okay? Because this is what it has been for us. It may be totally different for you. We honor and respect that, but now we're about to go hard and heavy. Now, let's go back to this, you finding the Moonies, and let's progress from there.
I met them when I arrived in England. I'd been traveling for about 3 years at that stage. I did a couple of years around Australia, and then I went overseas, and I'd traveled across several countries, worked in different places. Started out on a kibbutz in Israel, or a couple of kibbutzim in Israel, and then worked my way across Europe and slept on beaches and did all sorts of things, so and then made my way to England, and I met 2 members the moment I stepped out of Victoria Station. So I'd been in Victoria Station for 2 hours. They're not allowed to go in there. They're banned from there because they're considered nuisances. So I met 2 members. One of the girls was super religious, so she was kind of struck dumb. And thankfully, she couldn't open her mouth because I would have ditched her really quickly. And
okay,
then
wait. And I kind of want to interrupt in between because you use certain terminology, and I
yeah,
want to get your perspective of what that means.
yeah.
What do you mean by super religious?
Super religious meaning someone who talks about the religion a lot, I would have found it overwhelming, someone talking about God and talking about Jesus and talking about their faith, whereas the person who approached me saying, we want to create a unified world, people of all colors, all faiths, all religions, like all people coming together under the one banner of unity. So not under the one banner of religion, but under the one banner of unity and a future for the world. So that's the very difference. If I had been approached saying, do you believe in God? I would have said, nah, and I would have gone. That wouldn't have been true, but I would have just gone.
So they came to you with the soft sell.
Yeah, soft sell. Yeah, because that was that person's approach, and that was their system.
At that time in your life,
yeah,
were you maybe vulnerable? Were you seeking? Were you unaware? Had you been mistreated? Was there something that you were that was exuding out of your body when you got, when you're in this train station, that these people said, she might be one?
I was wearing a backpack. That was the surefire way of being witnessed to by a Mahoney. I was wearing a backpack, yes, I was seeking. I'll tell you a funny little story. When I was in Israel on the Mount of Olives, I always proclaimed myself to be agnostic, so I had a belief that there was something bigger than me, but I didn't want it attached to a religion. So I went to the Mount of Olives, and I remembered about what I'd read in the Bible many, many moons before, and saying that he will come on the clouds. So I looked up at the sky and I thought, Jesus, come! And I was really surprised at myself. But what was more disappointing was that there wasn't a cloud in the sky, so he wasn't coming anytime soon that day. So yes, there was something within me that felt the world needed a savior. Yeah, there was something within me, and I think people come at that realization, or at many different paths, and it's not always religious paths. Sometimes it's just looking around the world and thinking, hang on, the world's not as I would hope it would be. I saw a lot of injustice, and I saw a lot of injustice in Israel, and you can see what's going on now.
Well, we're gonna talk about that in just a minute. Okay.
Yeah.
So you looked up in the sky. you didn't see the great one. You're on this journey, on this quest with this backpack. You land in Europe. You meet these individuals that are asking you, what are you looking for? Maybe we can help you. So you get involved with the Moonies. Now, why? That's another big word. Why do you call it an occult?
Not a occult, just cult. Yeah, just cult. Yeah. Because since leaving, I now work with people who are survivors of cults, and the more I talk to those people, the more I realize there are an astonishing number of so-called messiahs around the world, and they are all using the same strategies. Since I am a survivor of family violence, I look through everything with the lens of a survivor of violence, and I'm very, very familiar with the strategies of coercive control. So many new age religions use those same strategies. So when I started looking more deeply at the strategies that were used and the strategies that are still implemented, it's exactly the same as any coercive control. So,
all right, well, give us a couple things or patterns or some trickery, as I call it, that they put on you. What is that about? Give us something that is a part of the patterns.
One of the key patterns is isolation. So it's particularly in the Moonies, if we were married, or when we were married, the women would most often go to another country. We were moved around from country to country, so we would go to the husband's country or go to even another country. So isolation from your family, from your friends. I was put into a country where I didn't speak the language, didn't understand the culture very much, made lots of mistakes, so it's a very lonely process. So isolation is one of the key strategies of coercive control. There was another section of isolation within the Moonies in particular, because there was a lot of persecution. They were encouraged to sever their relationship or sever contact with parents and families and friends. Okay. Now, I didn't agree with that, so I actually didn't do that. I was a bit of a slightly rebellious, but for a good reason.
You think?
Yeah, I just didn't see that cutting off my relationship with my family would be a good outcome, so I didn't agree with that, and I didn't do it. And that, thankfully, I always had that. Another strategy is, about social proof. Cialdini wrote a book, Powers of Persuasion. Anyway, he speaks about social proof. So if there's a whole group of people who are doing the same thing, and you're the only person who's not doing that thing, you think, well, because there's so many people doing this or so many people believing this, then it must be true. You kind of follow the crowd because it feels more comfortable than being the odd one out. So social proof is another big thing that's used in the Moonies. And I'm talking about all different cults or what they call like high demand religions, like where they have high demands on you. Another aspect was to dominate your time from morning to night, sleeplessness, and conditioning, to dedicate your every moment to the faith, and to study constantly, to constantly wash your brain with the belief system. So is that enough? That's
no. But what I'm saying, did they use, or do they have their own religious text or doctrine or interpretation, or did they try to use the Holy Bible?
The Bible's there, the whole Old and New Testament's there. They also incorporate different the Jewish faith, the Muslim faith. They incorporate everything. So they roll it all into one kind of thing, but it's based on Christianity, Old and New Testament.
Was there physical violence? Was there
not for me, but for some of the children, yes. Yeah.
Wow.
But
they beat you into submission?
I had a Korean elder, who said it was really good to keep smacking your child until they did what you told them to do. And I didn't agree with that as well. So I rebelled against that, and I just did my own thing. I decided I wasn't going to brutalize my child, but maybe other people did do that. And I found out they did, so not everybody. Certainly there's really good people. There's always good people in these different organizations, always.
Well, that's what Donald Trump says. There's some very good people on both sides. So I get that. It's subjective. I'm not saying that they are horrible people, but they're seekers too. And they believe in this doctrine. They don't separate themselves. They incorporate themselves. And so I look at people like dictators. I have a fascination with dictators because of how they move, how they are able to coerce you, manipulate you, but also in that you feel loved because you are a part of a unity, you're part of a family. You build alliances with with the people that are good to you, that you're good to them. You go through this whole metamorphosis of change. You're all seeking the same thing, which is love, acceptance, awareness, and abundance. Is what I am.
Yeah.
You stumbled across this big, fine, black African man and married him and became a Mooney. Girl, tell us about that.
Yeah. This is going to be fun for you, Violet. Oh, not Violet. April. I don't know where that came from.
I'll be your Violet.
This is going to be fun for you because I was part of a 6,000 couple marriage. Huh?
What?
We're in the what's that beautiful book that has all of the records in the world? Yeah. Guinness
Guinness
Book of
World Book
Records.
of Records? Wow.
We're in there. We're in there. So I was part of 6,000 couples, meaning 12,000 individuals who came to Korea and were matched together by Reverend Moon with their partners. Yeah. So we met one day. We were engaged that day and we were married 2 days later. Yeah. And then we went our separate ways. You have like basically a 3-year separation, and then you come back together as husband and wife. Yeah. But you're married during that time. Yeah.
Wait. Let me color in the white space. So somebody says, baby, will you be mine? Under this Christian belief or doctrine, you get with them. And then after 2 days, they ship you off somewhere else to become this submissive wife.
Yeah.
And your husband goes somewhere to become this, this dominant role figure. I don't get the in between there.
Yeah. Yeah. The what's the in between you're looking for?
Okay, so you're not having an opportunity to even consummate the marriage before you're being shipped off. What was the reasoning? What was the methodology behind the immediate separation and isolation?
Yeah, honestly, I wouldn't have liked it if we had to consummate the marriage after knowing one another for 3 days anyway. And
you married him after knowing him 2 days.
I
don't
know.
understand that. Did they prep you for this in the religion?
Absolutely.
Before you got married, so you were a Mooney before a couple, years or whatever, and then you progressed to the marriage and they introduced you to someone.
Yeah, the lead up when you join the church, the lead up is that when you join, I wanted to join and dedicate my life to God, and I thought I'll be single for the rest of my life. I'm cool with that, I've had fun. I'm okay, and then all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but gradually they started introducing the idea that actually the purpose of you joining is to become married and have children. Okay. And so they started introducing that idea and I thought, I don't want to do that, and all that sort of stuff. So I just put it back. But after 2 years, I realized that's what we had to do. So all of us had to get married, and that's also to expand the faith, Yeah. But so you're conditioned to believe that that's the way to go. So it's a lot of conditioning. People who were already married were treated as if they were on a pedestal, like they were more holy than us and all that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of conditioning that goes on that makes you believe this is the way to go. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you get married and you're separated from him for 3 years.
Yeah.
And then you become, husband and wife, and you finally consummate the relationship. Yeah. Take us there. What was that like? The marriage itself?
The marriage, there's a lot of control behind the scenes, like the leaders, like the national leaders in the country where you live, they have a lot of control over your relationship and stuff like that. So and you're considered that you should do everything for the church and not a lot for yourselves, you're still considered that you should be contributing to the church, that's the whole focus, that your marriage is for the church, your children are for the church, everything's for the church, so
your finances are for the church,
especially your finances for the church, especially. And so we created a little business, or I created a business because I was a commercial artist beforehand. That was my first job. I was also a nurse and a music teacher, but commercial art is much easier to travel with. I just traveled, and so I started a little art business, and that was the only business that our leader didn't shut down, like he didn't have any say over that. And I made that into a successful business while I was there, so I even won a prize for the best design and everything like that. And
so how did your husband feel about you working? That's a form of control too. And
he loved it. He loved it. He loved the fact that his wife had to stay at home all day, all night, working on these cards that I made. And he just nicked off. I didn't know where he went to. I asked him where he went to, and he would just leave me to it. So I did all of the work, and he reaped the rewards. I found out later, much later, that he was spending time playing cards with his mates. He was gambling. I became pregnant quite quickly, and I became very, very ill at the end of my 3rd month, and I lost weight. So I lost, you're talking pounds, right? I lost about 28 pounds in 8 days, and I never regained that weight. So I was actually underweight when I gave birth to my daughter, and he was gaining weight because he was feeding himself, but kind of forgetting to feed me. And I was pregnant, and then I was working sometimes up to 20 hours a day. Eventually he started helping me because the business became bigger. So he would help me. Can I show you what we were doing?
Yes,
I'll show you.
I'd love to see it.
Yeah, this is one example of what we were doing. There we go. Can you see that?
Oh my God, that is gorgeous. What is it? Is it a greeting card, a postcard?
It's just a little card, and people used to buy these and send them home, because it's so like African. I made African designs because I was in Africa. I tried other designs thinking that people wouldn't accept me making African designs when I'm not actually African, but that's what people wanted. So I had to make what people wanted in order to have a business. Yeah. So here's some of the others. Yeah. And anyway, so I made these. So yeah, that type of thing. So just little, yeah, they're kind of nice. I like them. Oh, and this is my Christmas one. I made a Christmas one with an African woman. I thought that was really cool.
Wow, that's really cool. Because I'll tell you, from my experience, again, the African culture is more tribalistic. More voodoo.
Yeah.
Because that is their deity. That is how they connected to spirit through what we call witch doctors, spiritualists, incantations, blood sacrifice. So that can be the total polar opposite from Christianity. Okay. And the slaves really underwent a lot of turmoil as they were brought from Africa to the United States for the slave trade. Now, we all know the story of eventually what happened, but also the story of voodoo, because they had to take on this religious doctrine of Christianity, but it was so foreign from them. Yeah. So it was not originally designed, from what my guests tell me and what I learned in New Orleans, as a form of punishment, but it was a form of spirituality and connecting with the gods. But they had to incorporate it into this way of thinking, because now they're so far away from everything that they know. They're still trying to bring that to fold. Now, let me ask you another thing. With the husband, was there abuse there? Was there, because sexual abuse? Was there additional mind control outside of the Moonies? Because he's got his own way of running things. I'm sure that there was a deep cultural divide. Did you know his family at all? What happened there?
Never got to meet his family. He said it wouldn't be good for me to meet his family. I didn't understand that. I asked other women who were married to Africans, and they had all met the families, but he refused to allow me to meet his family or his mother and father. I did bump into a cousin of his and one brother because they came to visit us. But apart from that, I met none of his family. I was kept quite isolated. Yeah.
And so he never met your family, because you said you still had a relationship with him. And I'm sure that, this Jewish mother is going, oh my God, what has my daughter gotten herself into?
No, it was my father who was Jewish. Mum was Christian, but we came to Australia. Fortunately for me, we came to Australia just in time for the birth of my eldest daughter. Because had I stayed, I didn't know until I came home to Australia that I was actually sick. Yeah. And so I probably wouldn't have survived very long, and my daughter would have been left with no mother. So I'm really grateful we came home. My parents helped us to do that, and
so when you
yeah.
say helped us come home, did she bring the husband too, or just
Yeah,
you?
we were married. We were well and truly married at that stage. We didn't break up until we had 27 years of marriage. We didn't break up until 20 years. And that's why I wanted to talk to you about faith-based marriages, because a woman's faith, a woman's identity as her identity as a woman of faith will keep her in a bad relationship for a lot longer than normal. Okay, if it's not a faith-based marriage, you're more likely to give yourself the opportunity to leave. But when your marriage is based on faith, leaving means, am I leaving my faith too? What does that mean about me as a woman of faith? So that's the complexity that I think is worthy of a conversation, because it is very complex. And also a lot of religions, and I'm talking about all mainstream religions. I'm not talking about just cults. I'm talking about all mainstream religions. There's a lot of pressure exerted on women who are in violent relationships, in violent marriages, that they should stay. Just go home and pray, dear, and then God will descend and he will help you, and your husband will be fine. And he's never going to be fine. So
nobody's perfect, that, yeah.
But it's your faith that's the problem. You're the problem. So the poor woman's being, whatever's happening to her is happening, and they're saying it's your problem. The marriage is bad because of you, because you haven't got enough faith. I thought, well, that's just rubbish. So it took me a while to come to terms with it was rubbish. And then I started to tell them, this is rubbish. A bad marriage is a bad marriage. Violence in a relationship is violence in a relationship. Yeah. And you asked me before, was there sexual abuse? There was certainly sexual abuse, but often that is something that's not spoken about by women who go through family violence. Sometimes that is a taboo area, because in a religious circle, sometimes that's considered, that's between the husband and wife. No one talks about that. But if it's abusive, it's abusive. It's simple as that, So
right,
and then
it's not, Brains. What you have to understand is, just because you're married to someone and no is still no.
Yeah.
No is still no. You don't want to be violated. And then there's no gratification. There's no sexual stimulation. There are all kind of weird things that can happen to you, hurtful things that can happen to you. And again, you have no one to turn to, because you are supposed to be submissive because you are the wife. But then there's other religions that pass the women around like, like tokens. Okay, you can do this, because we've said this. We have some religions here, and not all of them. And some of the churches allow polygamy.
You
have multiple wives, that you have these young minor wives, 14, 15 years old, that you want to be the one to break their virginity and continue the belief and the doctrine of this religion. You're building your own little world. And that's very, very dangerous. You have to be careful of that. And then the women get together and they do talk. Was there any camaraderie among the sisters saying, you know what, this doesn't feel right, something about this is wrong? Or were they afraid?
I started speaking up because I got tired of being silent. So I started speaking up, and I realized that what was going on in my marriage was not. I had to choose between my staying means I'm showing to my children, to my two girls, this is an okay way to treat a woman, and it's not. So I decided if I stayed within the relationship, I would be showing by my example that this is the way marriages are. And it just wasn't a message I wanted to tell my children. So once I decided I would leave, I started speaking up about family violence in relationships, and I'd seen it in other people's relationships. I'd seen abuse in other people's relationships in the church, and I just decided I would speak up. So I started asking for opportunities to give a sermon on family violence, and
Wow.
sometimes that didn't go down too well, but it did go down very well with the younger generation because they could relate to it. They could see that some of their parents' marriages were just really unpleasant, really unhappy. And so, the older generation, the people who joined the church, they would be committed, to making it work, even if it couldn't work, But the children that were the products of those marriages were much more realistic about how this is not a good place to be. This is not a good relationship, So it doesn't matter what your belief system, this is just not good,
Right. This
So,
doesn't look good. Doesn't
no,
feel
and
good.
and also I started speaking up. I spoke up everywhere I could, and I disclosed slowly, and then it was met with opposition from everyone, including the sisters, because they didn't understand, And then I would just keep on speaking up. I didn't allow people to silence me. I wasn't really loud. I was quiet. I was discreet. But I thought, I'm not going to be silenced, because
So when
part
you
of
say
that.
you were quiet and discreet,
Yeah.
did you have private meetings? Did you have
Yeah.
um, communication with other sisters that felt the same way that you did? Were you rebellious? Did you break away from the husband? You said you were married 27 years, but after
Yeah.
20 years there was a change. What
Yeah.
kind of things did you incorporate?
Well, in answer to your questions, I did have discreet meetings with sisters, just a small room of sisters, and I would just quietly disclose to someone that I regarded as an elder about what was going on. At first, it was met with opposition, but I just kept talking and I explained my situation, and then it was met with sympathy and support, So just a handful of people, not everybody. Some people were going to oppose me no matter what I did, no matter what I said, no matter how much proof I offered. What was the other part of your question? You were talking about, what was the other part of your question?
Again, meeting with them, the
Yeah.
opposition that you felt, and then
Yeah.
leaving the husband.
Yeah, I left the husband. I made a plan. I left him twice. One when I was 8 months pregnant with my second child, but I went back because he threatened me behind closed doors, and I just had to go back. So I stayed for a lot longer. But when I finally left, I just realized what I was telling my children by my example of staying in an abusive relationship. And also they were copying the abuse too. He was getting really scary. He was getting really scary. He was throwing things right past your ear at the wall. He was breaking things. He was just plain scary. So I put up with it enough, and I could see my kids being really affected by it as well. So I took 12 months to prepare. I reached out. He was gambling as well, and that was a no-no in our church. There were so many things that were no-no, and he did all of them. Another child showed up in Africa that was conceived during our marriage, and there were so many things that happened, that I just couldn't tolerate anymore. So I left. Yeah, I took 12 months to leave. I found myself a job. I had a permanent back injury. I was so disabled I could barely walk, but over a period of time, I was able to find a job that I could stand for 10 minutes, sit for 10 minutes, walk for 10 minutes, and it was okay. So I had to find myself jobs. I could only work 3 days a week, but I just thought I would rather leave than stay. And I thought, how can I get out of this marriage without him giving me grief, over the kids and everything like that? So I said, you can have everything. You can have the house, you can have the car, you can have all of the furniture, you can have every damn thing in the house.
Yeah.
I'm taking the kids. I was very clear about my priorities. My children were coming with me because I wasn't leaving them behind in an environment where they would be afraid, where they wouldn't have me, So,
But when you walked and you left,
yeah,
did you still walk with God?
yeah, absolutely. But I needed that. I needed that. So when I came to terms with the fact that I'm leaving doesn't interfere with me as a woman of faith. That's what I had to come to terms with before I could leave the marriage, that I had to be able to separate the two, because there is a clear separation. If your faith is holding you to an abusive marriage, then it's not a wonderful faith. It's not the faith that God would want you to have, Yeah. So once I was able to come to terms with that, that my faith actually helped me in my recovery process. And I've found a lot of women are the same, that gives them just a little bit more to be able to deal with all of the challenges that they face,
right.
just a
but
bit
what
more.
you have to do is, or you don't have to do, or some people have to do, is they have to have, like your art, a new sketch, a new design, a new template of what this quote unquote God is.
Yeah.
Is it to me? What does it mean to me? How is it supposed to feel? How do I want to feel? And who am I? Because you have been submerged and suppressed under the doctrine of what we're supposed to call love, faith, honor, and charity. You are suppressed and abused by a person that is supposed to love and honor you as a husband and a father. You lose your identity. You don't know who you are, or what is really, what this is supposed to look like or feel like for you, because it's very individualized. Let's just kind of tap into this for a minute. You're all aware of the war now in Israel. My position is neutrality, my personal opinion. Okay. I'm not going to pick one side or the other, because I have empathy for both sides. My Lord and Savior was a Jew, but I also understand the Palestinians as well. I do not support terrorism. I do not support hate or violence. But as a Black woman in America, I understand what suppression and oppression will do to you, psychologically, physically, emotionally. It hampers you, and you get to a point where dialogue is no longer effective because you're not being heard. So what do? Like anybody, like children, like animals, once you've been caged and oppressed, then you're going to act out, because violence is the only thing that people understand that is going to get an immediate reaction. I don't know if there will ever be peace in the Middle East. According to what I read, I don't foresee it anytime. But what do we say in support of individuals that are neutral, that just want peace, that just want love? How do we encourage them? Dianne, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. I don't know sometimes even what to feel. If you are doing this, quote unquote, under the pretext of a religion that is supposed to love, because every text that I've ever read, that is one of the paramount things that you have to incorporate is love and tolerance and respect and nonviolence. But these people in the world today are the complete polar opposite. I don't know what to say.
I think the Jewish faith is Old Testament, so it doesn't speak so much about the love that we talk from Jesus, like unconditional love and forgiveness. So you've got to remember that too. But it is what it is. When I was in Israel, I spent 12 months there, 6 months with the Jewish people and 6 months with the Palestinians. So I have a slightly balanced perspective, probably some people wouldn't necessarily like what I have to say, and that's okay. But I'm the same as you. I come down in the middle because there was injustice on both sides. But I have to say, I couldn't understand in the time I was in Israel how people who'd been through the Holocaust, who really had experienced for themselves what it's like to be oppressed, what it's like to be treated differently, just as a people, for whatever reason, I couldn't understand how they could then turn around and do the same to someone else. And I thought, if they were doing that to German people, I might understand. But they weren't doing to German people. They were doing it to Palestinians and Gentiles. It wasn't just the Palestinians. If you were Gentile, you're in trouble too. So the first question I was asked when I got to Israel was, are you Jewish? And if you say no, because my father was Jewish, that means I'm not. If my mother was Jewish, I would be Jewish according to the faith, So I had to say no to that question. And that meant there's a very different treatment for you, a very different treatment. I understand. I don't hold with terrorism. I don't, but I do understand that the Israelis are fighting with sophisticated weaponry. They always have. The Palestinians were always fighting with stones and rocks. It's very different. Okay. So there's only so much, as you said, there's only so much oppression and persecution and hardship that you can inflict upon people. And finally, they're going to explode. Finally, they're going to explode. I think had the Palestinians been treated with some dignity and respect, I don't think Hamas would have a way into the West Bank. It laid a foundation for someone to come in and say, we'll rescue you, we'll save you.
Right.
For all of the reasons.
By all means necessary.
Yeah, exactly.
Under the cover of religion.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
so it's a bad situation. I feel sorrowful for both sides, because I feel sorrowful, but I must admit, I feel more sorrow for the Palestinians right now, because when someone says, we're going to cut off your water and your electricity and everything that you need to survive, I don't think that's I don't think that's an appropriate way of dealing with people. That's saying, I'm going to kill you, basically. Right. And
I'm going to annihilate you and you won't be there, but
Yeah.
We could talk about this forever. My heart, my stomach hurts. And because they're fighting wars that are centuries old. That's like me, civil rights.
Yeah.
I'm all about civil rights.
Yeah.
But civil rights was handed to me.
Yeah.
I did not, I was trampled in a couple riots, as a child. I remember that. But as far as being segregated or being a slave, and to continue that form of epigenetics over and over and over again, the cycle will never change. But there'll come a change, and everyone is going to be very shocked. They're going to be very shocked. They're going to have to get in line, or they're going to get left behind for sure. Okay, so now fast forward. You found your independence. You found God for yourself. You're free from this husband. You've got these two beautiful girls. Where are you now in life?
Yeah, I've got my own business. I worked as a volunteer for 10 years doing court support and advocacy for survivors of family violence. I also co-facilitated a multicultural women's support group for the survivors. And as a result of doing that work over the 10 years, I started to hear where the women were in their recovery process, and I could see what was blocking them. So what I did was I started creating education trainings that I could deliver to the women's support group to see if that helped them to overcome those blockages. And I developed 7 trainings over 7 years, and each and every one of them was really successful. It was really amazing. So some of them are still used, probably without my permission, but some of those trainings are still used because they were so effective.
You say probably without my permission.
Yeah, but anyway, I don't mind because I as long as it makes a positive difference to people, I don't really care so much. So as a result of that, they kind of shoved me out after 10 years because I was doing stuff that I should have been paid for, and I think they thought they would get found out. So they kind of nudged me out of the place, which was really disappointing. But so I established my own business, Family Violence Mindset Solutions, and now I'm liaising with people. I run a family violence support group and trauma PTSD group with Mental Health Foundation Australia. And so I use collaborations, to help people. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. And my focus is the recovery. So there's a lot of government support for the first 6 to 12 months in the crisis period, but there's almost nothing for long-term recovery. So I'm a recovery coach and also a behavioural profiler. So I teach people what are the strategies for coercive control, how to recognize them in the early stages of a relationship, how are they different to new love, so new love and early stages of coercive control or abuse are almost identical. So how do you tell the difference between the two? What's the real difference, so that I don't fall prey to that type thing. So so I'm working with survivors who have come out of cults as well. And I'm using the same lens, once you understand family violence and the strategies of coercive control, you can apply it to so many things. And the reality is we need this education because bullying in the workplace, any sort of control mechanism anywhere, it's not just families. It might start in families, it might have had its beginning in families, but it seeps into the workplace, it seeps into schools, it seeps into every area of life,
the aspect of your life, because it's a part of the programming.
Exactly. So that's why I'm really interested in recovery, really interested in educating people to recognize these strategies and wherever they may be.
And also, let's dial back to what you said, religion versus spirituality.
Yeah.
Don't be fooled.
Yeah.
That, there are energy thieves.
Yeah.
And there are people that will manipulate you on a different frequency in a different kind of way.
Yeah.
And you have no way of being clear, because sometimes you can go from the pot to the frying pan. You already have this mentality. It's like for an example, a person that's on drugs, they have an addictive personality. Once you've gotten off maybe the weed, then you take the pills. Now you're taking the heroin. Now you're just, taking everything, because that is what is ingrained in you. That's what feels comfortable. You say in Australia that, again, they tend more to be more spiritual. Do you find coercive control in that realm as well?
It's everywhere.
Spirituality?
It's everywhere. So that's why once I learned the strategies, once I became really familiar with the strategies of coercive control, I just look through that lens and I see it everywhere, but I think you've got to be careful. I'm suspicious of every relationship,
Yeah.
I think that's healthy. I actually think that's healthy,
That's
so
right.
I now insist that people earn my trust rather than just automatically give it.
Absolutely. I'm with you 110%. When I meet people, you do not get 100 with me. You might get 65.
Yeah.
Because that's my boundary. That's my safety zone. That gives us an opportunity to even have agree to disagree. But how do you show up? What is your disagreeableness? What is my tolerance level? Because everybody at a certain age, even kids, you're going to have some conflicts.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is how you know what you like, what you don't like. This is how you establish your position. But it's how you do it, it's how you treat people, it's what you learn from it, all of that. So in closing, I'd like to ask you, Dianne, where are you in your walk with your faith?
I still have this really beautiful relationship with God, and I talk to him. I drive my car and I'm talking to him, but I'm also stating my case. Like I don't ask my God, give me a sign that I'm doing the right thing. I don't do that. We're beyond that now. He wants me to grow up. He wants me to make decisions and consult him, but make those decisions and action those decisions with using my values, beliefs, and morals as a basis, you know. So I do that, and now I make these actions, I make these decisions, and then I say, this is what I've done. What do you think about that? Most of the time, I'm getting good feedback, most of the time. But I've always said, whatever decisions I make, I'm making them, and I will take full responsibility for the outcome. You know, I'm not a kid anymore. I'm not saying, show me a sign, otherwise I'm not going to do anything. I mean, that means you're afraid to do anything at all, you know. And God wants people to be leaders. He doesn't want people just to be followers who are saying, help me, help me, help me, help me all the time.
Right.
So that's where I am at this moment in time.
Do you go to a religious temple or church or?
No, don't need to. I just don't need to anymore.
You
I
know what?
could.
And I don't either.
Yeah,
I
I
don't either,
could.
because again, I have that personal one-on-one relationship.
Yeah.
I'm very spiritual, and
Yeah.
I believe in the word, and I believe in Jesus Christ,
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
not afraid to say it.
Yeah.
But I don't need to wear it on the outside. I need to live it on the inside.
Yeah. And
So
that's
thank you so much. You are
my
just
pleasure.
you're a beautiful woman. You are really a beautiful woman, and you've endured a lot. But again, you were strong. You were strong from the day that they picked you up at that train station with that backpack. You always had a sense of independence. You
Yeah.
always had a sense of self. So brains,
Yeah.
reach out and look for that. Look for what feels good, what makes you happy, what makes you smile, what makes you giggle. You got a beautiful infectious laugh, but also what love feels like. You know, it's no shame to have an orgasm. There's no shame to be loved and have passion and want to snuggle up. There's no shame in being alone. You can be lonely and alone. You know, you just don't have to go through this. And listen to your heart. If someone is telling you something and it's not resonating with your soul, and they keep trying to ingrain it in you, and all, you know, it's like a pair of shoes. If you are a size 9 and they keep giving you a 6, baby, it just don't fit. It just doesn't fit. Please, Dianne, please tell my brains how to get in contact with you if they are in a coercive control relationship, if they are fearful, if they are a victim of domestic violence. Please, how can they contact you?
Well, they can go to my website. It's called Family Violence Mindset Solutions.com. It may be .au, but anyway, try both. I can't remember which. And they can talk to me through that. They can contact me through that. Okay. Yeah.
All right. And I'll definitely put all of your contact information at the back of the interview. You have been so full and so giving and so transparent. I thank you for that. I thank God for you. That again, like that angel on your show, there's an angel in that chair, someone that wants to uplift you and carry you on their wings. You're not alone.
Thank you.
Go in, brains, and like, love, share, and subscribe. Pretty please, like, love, share, and subscribe, so that you can always be on the edge where it's pointed. The conversation is real, and we care about you. We love you. If there's something that you don't agree with, leave a comment, as long as it's respectful, because if not, we'll delete it. We know how to get rid of things that don't suit us and don't feel good to us, right, Dianne?
Yes, absolutely.
I know. All right. Sending you love and light, my sister.
See you later.
All right. Bye, brains. Have a good day.